Cooking Pastas from the Food Pantry. William Hovey Smith, 2021. This is Hovey Smith, the Backyard Sportsman. Like most of us now, we're still sort of getting through Thanksgiving stuff. And I still have a few things that I cooked or partially cooked for Thanksgiving that I'm using up. Among them is this deer meat, which I used in my dill deer potato salad, which I have videos about, by the way. And it is fatty. And so what I'm going to do is to heat this, drain off much of the excess fat, and then add it to macaroni and cheese made from this mix. Now, I've already investigated the ramen noodles here, as well as the scalloped potatoes. And I have made those and added extra ingredients to it. The scalloped potatoes had deer meat, and the ramen noodles, a can of peas. Because it's somewhat unfamiliar to most people, I'm going to cook some of this whole grain elbows, which is a small macaroni. Now, whole wheat pasta is not as tasty as regular pasta. That's admitted. So I'm going to make up a spicy sauce for it based on tomatoes. Your typical spaghetti sauce. And speaking of spaghetti, in the distribution we had 2 packs of this and 1 pack of this. Now this is a domestic produced spaghetti. This, however, is a premium Italian spaghetti, and it is Molosana and spaghetti number 15. But you can tell from what you can see, it is both lighter in color as well as more uniform down the spines. So, this is a really good spaghetti. But for me, by myself, this much pasta is about a year's supply. I can't use it all. Not anything like that fast at any rate. So, what we're going to do is we're going to make the pasta sauce, and we're going to cook approximately a cup of these elbows, and we're also going to cook the macaroni and cheese. You can buy spaghetti sauce at your stores. Yes, but you can also make it. And so we're going to show you how to do that. The first thing we're going to do is this macaroni and cheese. Now, this is being made by any number of thousands of teenagers and young mothers and family members as a quick meal that most kids recognize. And the macaroni in here is loose. And we have our handy cheese sauce right there. The recipe for our macaroni calls for 6 cups of water. While that is taking place, I'm going to thaw the deer sausage in the microwave. And this is some from this year, and I have a video on how I made it. Now this sausage already contains peppers and dill weed and oregano and other spices. So I have to be pretty careful about how I spice this mix. I melted the fat from the deer And I'm going to spoon that off now into the water mix, which is still heating. Okay. I've turned down the heat so it doesn't boil over. Well, the darker clumps are the meat, and you can also see some of the spices floating around that were in the deer meat. Okay. That's looking good for this stage, so we'll just let it sit there and work. We now have the pasta and the deer meat that have been boiled together in the pot. We can now add our added ingredients. Which include the cheese, and a little butter. And at the very last, a quarter cup of milk. Let's see what we got here. It's not as sharp or as cheesy as it would have been if I had made it with a sharp cheddar cheese. But the meat does add protein. It's edible, but not particularly distinguished. A little black pepper would help, I think. See if that improves it. Yes, it does. That helps it a little bit. Now, the remainder of this can be refrigerated and consumed later. I'm an author, and in my outdoor books I have recipes in practical bow fishing, extreme muzzleloading, crossbow hunting, and backyard deer hunting. I also have some significant business books. The most recent of which is Make Your Own Job, Anytime, Anywhere, at Any Age, which just got an excellent review from the U.S. Review of Books, and they put it on their recommended list. My new novel, Until Death Do You Part, An American Family Meets Their Sicilian Cousins, is now also available on Amazon as a softcover, ebook, and as an audio book. While the deer meat is thawing, I'm going to prepare my vegetables. And since this is a spaghetti sauce, it's going to have some garlic in it. And I'm going to work it with one of my own knives here. And we're going to chop these up. In the meantime, the pasta that I've opened is going to get stored in these jars until I use it, because it may be years before I actually work through this much pasta. I suppose there are some Italian dishes that contain pasta and don't contain garlic, but I don't know of any offhand. And yes, you can buy minced garlic already done. We've completed our chopping and are starting our sausage meat off in this electric fry pan. And as you can see, it is now thawed. Start adding our other ingredients here. These onions and tomatoes will sweat, and consequently they'll start adding moisture to the mix, besides that coming out of the deer. After these are browned, I'm going to be adding more liquid tomato products and bring it up to something that looks more nearly like a pasta sauce traditionally. But we need to get these cooked first. Now that the fresh vegetables are largely sweated down, but before they start to stick, we're going to add other of the tomato products that we're going to use. This could be almost anything. This could be tomato sauce, this could be tomato paste. In this case I'm using stewed tomatoes. Which also have some peppers and seasonings in them. Now, one thing you don't want to use in a spaghetti sauce typically, unless you want to turn it sweet, is ketchup. Because ketchup contains a lot of sugar. And you'll probably get enough sweetness from the onions actually without using ketchup. I happen to have a little leftover salsa, so I'm going to throw that in as well. And a little water. Now hang on to this jar, wash it out and use it, because you can use it to store any excess sauce that you may have. Now the frying pan has been on high, and now we're going to turn it down to between medium and low. So we want these flavors to sit here and simmer. While the sauce is simmering, and before you actually start cooking the pasta, is a good time to catch up on your dishes. My wife and the women I've lived with always complain that when I cooked I messed up every dish in the house. And there is some truth to that. And I'm cooking now in the early hours of the morning before dawn. And this is the time that most people have during the week if they're going to do any serious cooking. Yeah, this is about the only time they can. And so while the kids are asleep, before the wife gets up and so on and so on and so on, okay, you guys get in the kitchen and cook. But don't leave your wife a mess of dirty dishes in the sink for her to deal with. If you're going to cook, yeah, you need to leave some cleanup time so you can get these wiped out too. Well, the spaghetti sauce is done. Now all that's needed is to taste it and adjust the seasonings. When you're making a spaghetti sauce, keep in mind you're going to be diluting it with pasta. So it probably needs to be seasoned a little more than you would normally if it was something you were going to eat just as it is. And we now have our dishes washed, so we can proceed to the next event, which is actually finally cooking the pasta. And I've got water on the stove and it's going to be boiling, and we're going to add a little olive oil to it to keep it from sticking, and then we'll proceed. While our pasta is boiling away, we have a sample here of our sauce. We're going to see what we need to add to it, if anything, remembering that everything except the vegetables was already pre-seasoned. So you certainly want to taste it before you just start throwing stuff in there. Got enough salt. Slightly sweet from the onions. A little bit of acid from the tomatoes. I feel a little bit of heat, not much. Yeah, this will do. This will do very well. And here we have our finished whole wheat pasta ready to go in the refrigerator for me to eat on for the rest of the week. In many households, the first meals cooked by young people are these box pastas. Their first attempts may be more of a mess than a success, but let them try. Everybody needs to learn basic cooking. Food pantries and organizations like Hunters for the Hungry, as well as wild game processors, are sources of wild game meat if you don't hunt or know anyone who does. For more information about my books, blogs, and nearly 900 videos, go to www.hoviesmith.com. To find out more about my business books, go to createyourownjobsecurity.com. To discover the latest about my novel, screenplay, and movie project, go to fatherthegrooms.net. Order these books now to support this channel and to ensure Christmas delivery. Hunt what you eat and eat what you hunt. Goodbye and God bless.